I read something you wrote about why fish is not the brain food we need. Because a lot of people will think, oh, well, I need to ingest more fish because it's good for my brain. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think fish has a little bit of a health halo that perhaps isn't quite as deserved. And the reason I think it has that is because compared to red meat or other animal foods, fish is better. So in a relative sense, it's a little bit healthier. I always have a hard time with this question a little bit because you want to be true to the research, and that's basically what the research shows. Now, of course, the problem with fish, I always tell people, is twofold. The first is contamination levels, and so when you look at foods that are contaminated with dioxins and mercury and metals, plastics, fish ranks the highest every single time. And it makes sense because our waters and rivers have become, sort of the sewers of the world, so to speak, and everything ends up there. And so then the fish take it up. And then particularly if you eat fish that eat other fish, and so there's this bioaccumulation that goes up the food chain. They've measured contamination levels in water. They measure it in algae in the water, goes up. They measure it in the fish that eat the algae. Again, you see 100-fold increase in those levels of contamination, and then fish that eat other fish. And the scary thing, of course, is that a third of the fish that we catch gets fed to animals like chickens and cows, which doesn't make any sense at all. And so I think that from a health perspective, from a hormone perspective, these can be quite disruptive, these dioxins, these PCBs. They're actually known as hormone disruptors or obesogens. You're probably familiar with this. And now we're starting to see studies that show higher rates of diabetes with higher fish consumption. And so again, this could be tied back to their sort of concerns around metabolic health. The second problem, of course, that with fish is ecological, and it's a very damaging, it's very damaging industry. We just don't care about it because we don't see it, and because we're depleting fish stocks at such an incredible rate. They're predicting fishless oceans, I don't know, by the year 2050 or something like that. So that's a scary thought. But again, unfortunately, fish does have this halo effect. Now, so the question, of course, then is the omega-3. So that's always the reason why fish is cited as being healthy. And so, we can supplement those pretty easily and get the benefits of that. So, but that's a whole another topic of conversation.
And would that be from the source where the fish get it from? So the seaweeds and the algae that they eat?
They don't make it. They just get it from their diets. Just like land animals get it from leafy greens. So fish get it from algae and seaweed. Yeah. So it's much better to get it, for us to get it from algae and seaweed in the form of a supplement, if that's recommended. There is something called the Omega-3 index that you can measure in your blood. That's a test that you can get, and it looks at kind of the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 within the red blood cells, which is a good proxy for levels. And so they find that that vegans actually are quite low who don't supplement, and so people have sort of said, well, that's not good news for vegans. And in the general population, they say, well, people with a low reading on this omega-3 index have more problems with brain health and more problems with cardiovascular disease. But vegans also have lower rates of cardiovascular disease. So I'd like to see a study where they compare vegans who supplement versus those that don't, to see if there is an added benefit from getting omega-3s or not. I'm not sure that study will ever happen, but who knows? You never know. Yeah.
And what leafy green is highest in the omega-3s for us land animals?
Purslane is pretty high.
Oh, great. I've never eaten that. What is that?
I'm not sure. I've never eaten it either. That's just what I've heard.
Okay.
But yeah, it's, if you think about land animals, they eat leafy greens all day long. So the actual amounts in leafy greens is quite low. We would get it more from nuts and seeds.